My parents kicked me out for refusing to babysit my sister's kids, so I changed my number, went no contact, and let them struggle alone. I'm a 24-year-old woman, and I've always played second fiddle to my sister, from as early as I can remember. Jenna was the sun our family orbited around. She cried louder, demanded more, broke things, threw tantrums, and every time my parents rushed to soothe her like she was made of glass. Don't upset Jenna, she's sensitive. She's just going through a phase. She didn't mean it. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, the easy one. The girl who dressed herself, did her homework without being asked, and learned to stifle her own needs. If I ever cried, my mom's face would harden. Stop being dramatic. You're the strong one. You should know better. That phrase followed me everywhere. You should know better. Better than to expect attention. Better than to feel hurt when Jenna screamed at me. Better than to want the same kind of love she got effortlessly. Once when I was 8, I scraped my knee open on the driveway. I ran inside crying, blood running down my shin. My mom barely looked up from the kitchen sink. "You'll be fine," she said. That same summer, Jenna threw a fit because her popsicle melted too fast, and they took her out for ice cream to cheer her up. I learned not to need, not to expect, not to interrupt the chaos that was Jenna's world. Even when I excelled, good grades, quiet awards, small wins, they were brushed aside. "That's great, honey," Dad would mumble, eyes already back on Jenna's latest problem. You'd think being the responsible one would earn respect. It didn't. It just meant I was useful, disposable, expected to carry peace without making noise. And the worst part? I believed them. I really thought that being overlooked was something I deserved. Until one day, I didn't. When Jenna got pregnant at 19, no one was surprised. She had barely finished high school, bounced between boyfriends, and always swore she'd never be tied down. But the moment those 2 pink lines showed up, the entire family shifted into crisis mode. Her crisis, as always. And me? I became the solution. At first it was subtle. "Can you help her out a little?" my mom asked. "You're good with kids and she's struggling." I didn't mind, at first. I love my niece. I changed diapers, made bottles, even missed a few study group sessions to help out. But one weekend turned into every weekend. One favor turned into routine. Jenna started showing up unannounced, baby in tow, bags in hand, mascara smudged like she was on the verge of tears. "I just need a break," she'd say, already halfway out the door. My parents never asked if I had plans. They just assumed I'd drop everything. "Be a team player," my dad said. You know how hard this is for her. No one asked how hard it was for me. I was working part-time, going to school full-time, and still expected to function as Jenna's second pair of hands. Babysitter, therapist, emotional punching bag. They never paid me, never thanked me, never asked if I wanted to help. It wasn't about love, it was obligation wrapped in guilt. I remember one Sunday night. I had a huge exam the next morning. Jenna called, sobbing, "I can't handle them tonight, please." When I hesitated, my mom grabbed the phone. "You're being cruel." "What kind of sister are you?" So I stayed up all night with a screaming toddler on my lap and failed that exam. That was the first time I looked in the mirror and asked, what am I to them, really? Because I sure as hell wasn't a daughter. I fought hard to get into college, community college first, because that's all I could afford on my own, but it felt like freedom. Like a breath of air after years of choking on everyone else's problems. I got a tiny studio apartment, picked up shifts at a bookstore, and threw myself into school. It was the first time I chose me, but my family didn't see it that way. To them, I was still within reach. Still the responsible one. Still the emergency backup plan. At first, it was just calls. "Can you swing by after your class? She just needs a quick nap." She's going through a lot right now. Then Jenna started dropping the kids off without notice. One time, I came home after a 3-hour night class to find her sitting on my stoop, twins in tow. "I have a date," she smiled. I knew you wouldn't mind. She didn't even ask. I tried to speak up. I said, "I can't keep doing this. I'm barely keeping up with work and school." My mom's voice, sharp and cold, came through the phone. "Family comes before ambition." It hit like a slap. My ambition wasn't a selfish dream. It was survival. But to them, it was an inconvenience. Me wanting a life of my own was betrayal. I remember sitting in the library one night, trying to cram for an exam while getting text after text. Are you really ignoring your sister? She needs you. She's falling apart. Meanwhile, I was falling apart too, just silently, quietly. The way I was taught to. It became clear. Their idea of family meant me giving, and them taking, no matter the cost. And eventually, the cost became everything. The more I pulled away, the harder they pulled back. When I didn't answer Jenna's texts right away, she'd send a photo of the kids, faces dirty, clothes wrinkled, one of them crying and write, "They miss you. They don't understand why you're gone." I'd stare at the screen, heart twisting with guilt. But then I'd remember I wasn't gone. I was trying to live. The manipulation became a language. One I knew too well. Calls from my mom started coming at odd hours. "You're being cold. Jenna is fragile. This isn't who you are." She always used those words. This isn't who you are, like I had no right to change. Like I owed them my exhaustion. Even my dad, who usually stayed quiet, began chiming in. "You think you're better than us now? Too good for your family?" I wasn't trying to be better. I was trying to survive. And when I truly needed someone, when I got sick and couldn't afford my meds, when my tire blew out at midnight, when I cried alone in my apartment with no food in the fridge, not one of them showed up. I told my mom once, "You only call when you need something. You don't even ask if I'm okay." She gasped like I'd slapped her. "We've done everything for you," she hissed. And then she hung up. That night, I stared at my ceiling for hours. I wasn't angry. I was numb. I kept asking myself, if I collapsed tomorrow, would any of them notice? I was starting to understand something ugly. They didn't love me. They loved what I did for them, and deep down, I knew they were never going to stop taking. Not unless I made them. It happened on a Thursday evening, the day everything quietly snapped. I was finally starting to get ahead. Work was steady, grades were good, and I'd promised myself a rare weekend to rest. Then Jenna called. Her voice was sugary at first, the kind she used when she wanted something. "Hey, can you watch the kids this weekend?" "Just 2 days, please." I told her, "I can't. I have a project due Monday." Silence. Then a sigh. "Seriously? You're really going to leave me hanging like this?" For once, I didn't back down. "I'm sorry, Jenna, you'll have to figure something out." Within minutes, my phone exploded. Mom called first. "You're being heartless," she snapped. "She's your sister. Those kids love you." Then Dad chimed in. "You think your little job matters more than family?" I tried to stay calm, but my hands were shaking. I told them I'd done enough, that it wasn't my job to raise Jenna's kids. My mother's voice turned cold. "I can't believe you'd talk to me like that. You've changed." I wanted to laugh. Of course I'd changed. I was tired of being the family's safety net, so for the first time ever, I did the unthinkable. I hung up. That weekend, I turned my phone off. No texts, no guilt, just quiet. I made coffee, read a book, and slept until noon. For the first time in years, I felt what peace might look like. But deep down, I knew peace wouldn't last, because in my family, saying no wasn't defiance. It was betrayal. And when I turned my phone back on Sunday night, I already had a dozen missed calls and one message from my mom that froze my blood. "Don't bother coming home." They showed up at my apartment the next morning. I had just gotten out of the shower when I heard pounding on the door, heavy, impatient, angry. My stomach sank before I even looked through the peephole. It was my parents. I opened the door half an inch, towel still wrapped around my hair. "What are you doing here?" I asked, already bracing for the storm. My mom didn't wait for an invitation. She pushed past me, my dad following silently. "You've become selfish," she spat. "I don't even recognize you anymore." My heart pounded. "You can't just show up like this." "You made us," she snapped. "You left us no choice. You hung up on your family." I tried to stay calm, but my voice cracked. I said no one time. After years of bending over backwards, my dad cut me off, his voice low but sharp. "Either you help Jenna with those kids, or we're done." I blinked. "Are you seriously giving me an ultimatum?" Mom crossed her arms. "Yes, because this version of you? We don't want it in our family." The words stung more than I expected. Even after everything, a part of me still wanted them to choose me without conditions. to see me for once, but they didn't. They only saw what they wanted me to be. I stood there, soaking wet, still in my robe, heart breaking and hardening all at once. And then I said it. Okay, then we're done. My mom's face crumbled. My dad looked stunned. They didn't expect me to actually choose myself. I opened the door and stood aside. You can leave now, they did. Without another word, and as soon as the door clicked shut, I fell to my knees and cried harder than I ever had before. I wish I could say I felt powerful after that. But truthfully, I felt wrecked. 2 hours after they left, I packed a bag. Not because I had to, my name was on the lease, but because being in that apartment felt poison now. Every corner of it reminded me of the fight, of their faces, of that final ultimatum. I texted my best friend Cassie. Do you have space for a night or two? I just can't be here right now, she replied in seconds. Always, come over. No questions. Cassie lived in a cramped one-bedroom with her boyfriend, but she made space for me on the couch without hesitation. That night, as I lay there staring at the ceiling, wrapped in one of her scratchy old blankets, something broke open inside me. Not just sadness, not just anger, grief. Grief for the childhood I never had. Grief for the parents who never protected me. Grief for the realization that I'd spent 24 years trying to earn love that was always conditional. Cassie sat beside me with tea and said softly, "You know you didn't deserve any of that, right?" I shook my head, tears spilling. "I don't know what I deserve anymore." She grabbed my hand. "Then start here. You deserve rest. You deserve people who care when you're not useful. And you deserve to take up space without earning it." No one had ever said that to me before. Not once. Over the next few days, I stayed on that couch, went to work, kept my head down, but I also started to breathe differently. Cassie didn't ask me for anything. She didn't expect me to fix anyone's problems. She just let me exist, and in that tiny apartment, with cheap string lights and a half-broken coffee table, I began to realize, maybe this is what family could feel like. It didn't take long for them to launch a full-blown guilt offensive. Even though I had blocked my parents' numbers, they found other ways. Jenna messaged me through Facebook. "You abandoned us. The kids cry for you every day. You used to have a heart." I stared at the screen, my stomach churning. Then came the texts from unfamiliar numbers, some with no names, some I recognized as cousins or old family friends. "Your mother is devastated. Blood is thicker than water. You're throwing away your family over babysitting?" It was like they had built a whisper network, handing out my number like a wanted poster. I tried to change it, but I needed that line for work. So instead, I silenced my phone, let the messages pile up, and stared at the ceiling most nights in a thick fog of guilt. Cassie saw me reading one of the messages and said, "You don't owe anyone your sanity just because you share DNA," but it didn't stop. Jenna even sent pictures of the kids, messy hair, tear-streaked cheeks captioned with things like, "I guess they're not important enough anymore." They used the children as weapons, like shields I was supposed to feel too guilty to walk away from. And I'll admit it almost worked. One night I stood in the shower fully dressed, shaking, not crying, not screaming, just frozen, because I didn't know how to exist without their chaos. I had been trained my whole life to respond to their needs before my own, but something had shifted now. Something irreversible. So I did the thing that terrified me most. I walked into a cell service store the next morning, filled out the paperwork, and changed my number. No goodbye. No warning.
Just silence, and for the first time in my life.
I wasn't reachable. I thought changing my number would be the end of it. But people like my family don't give up when the attention stops. They just get louder and more public. I was on my lunch break scrolling through Instagram when a friend DM'd me. "Is this about you?" Attached was a screenshot of a Facebook post. It was Jenna, a photo of her kids sitting on the porch looking sad, probably staged, and the caption underneath read, "Some people only love you when it's easy." My kids didn't deserve to be abandoned by someone they saw as a second mom. Blood doesn't mean loyalty. I stopped breathing. The comments were filled with sympathy. "You poor thing. You've been through so much. She'll regret it one day. You're such a strong mama." And then came the comments that really burned. "She sounds like a narcissist." "Cut her off. Jenna, you and the kids deserve better. No names, of course, just implication. But it was clear who she meant, and the worst part? People believed her. Because I hadn't told anyone my side. I hadn't aired the years of unpaid labor, emotional neglect, or manipulation. I thought by staying quiet I was being mature, taking the high road. But now they were writing the story for me and turning me into the villain. I wanted to comment. To scream, to post receipts. I had screenshots, voice notes, messages where they berated me. I hovered over the comment box, fingers shaking, but then I closed the app. Instead, I took screenshots of everything. Saved them to a folder called Just In Case, because maybe I wouldn't fight them now. But if they ever tried to come for my job, my friends, or my future, I'd be ready. And from that moment on, I knew this wasn't over. I thought the Facebook post would be the lowest blow. I was wrong. A few days later, I got a call from my cousin Leah. We hadn't spoken in months, but her voice was tight, cautious. "Hey, I just wanted to check on you. Is everything okay?" I hesitated. "Yeah, why?" She sighed. "Because Aunt Marie told everyone you moved in with some guy and started using." I froze. "What?" She said you got into the wrong crowd. That you cut everyone off because you're addicted and don't want help. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. I couldn't speak. My lips moved, but no sound came out. "She told Grandma you stole money from Jenna. That the stress made Jenna lose her job. They're painting you like some runaway addict who abandoned her family." I sat down on the floor, cold, numb. "I haven't even seen anyone." "I don't even drink," I whispered. "I know," Leah said. "That's why I called you. It just didn't make sense." The betrayal hit deeper than any guilt trip ever could. They weren't just trying to get me back. They were trying to destroy me. I imagined the whispers at family weddings, barbecues, funerals. Imagined my name being said with a shake of the head and a pitying look. And I couldn't defend myself because I hadn't told anyone the truth. I let them own the narrative. I had stayed silent out of dignity, out of fear. But now my silence was being used as fuel for their fiction. I hung up with Leah and sat in that stillness, heart pounding. Then I opened my laptop, created a document titled Everything, and for the next 6 hours, I wrote it all down because if they wanted war, I'd give them truth. I always thought going no contact sounded dramatic, like something people did after a messy breakup or a movie-style betrayal. But when the lies about me started spreading, it didn't feel dramatic. It felt necessary. I looked at my call logs, my messages, my email inbox. Every notification felt like a punch. Every ping was a reminder that I wasn't safe. So I started deleting, one by one. Blocked my parents. Blocked Jenna. Blocked her boyfriend. Blocked every number I didn't recognize. Then I changed my number again. This time for good. New SIM. New email. I told my boss, my closest friends, and 3 people I trusted. That's it. Everyone else? Cut. I moved to a different apartment 2 towns over. Smaller, quieter, farther. The kind of place where no one knew my last name. Where I could walk down the street and not feel like someone was watching me. At first, the silence was deafening. No more guilt-tripping text. No staged photos of sad kids. Just space. I'd sit on the floor some nights and cry. Not because I missed them, but because I didn't know who I was without them constantly needing me. They had been my identity. The fixer. The helper. The quiet, dependable one. Now I was just me. I started seeing a therapist. Her office smelled like old books and lavender. She asked me, "When was the last time someone took care of you?" And I didn't have an answer. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for the next emergency. I was learning how to exist without tension, without walking on eggshells, without having to prove I was worthy of love. It wasn't easy. But it was mine, and deep down I knew. If I let them back in, I'd lose everything I was just starting to rebuild. It had been almost 8 months of silence when I got the call. From an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail like I always did, but when I listened, it was my aunt. Her voice was shaky. Jenna's husband left her, packed up and moved out without a word. She said Jenna had lost her job a month before, that she was struggling to pay rent, that she had no childcare, no money, and the kids were missing school. "She's not doing well," she said softly. "Your mom is trying her best, but it's all falling apart." I didn't say anything. Just hit delete. 2 days later, an email came through. No subject line. Just, I know you hate me. But please help. I don't know what to do anymore. Jenna. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me expected to feel triumphant. Like this was some full circle moment where I could reclaim power by saying no, but all I felt was hollow. Not because I missed them, but because even now, even at her absolute lowest, she didn't apologize. She didn't say, I'm sorry for what we did to you. She just asked for more. She assumed, like always, that I'd drop everything and save her. But I had nothing left to give. I had learned to protect my energy like my life depended on it, because at one point it did, so I didn't respond. I didn't write back. I didn't even tell Cassie. I simply archived the email, poured myself some tea, and opened the book I'd been reading. And in that moment, I realized their rock bottom wasn't mine to fix. Their chaos wasn't my responsibility. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the bad guy. I just felt free. It started with an Instagram reel. Just some girl talking about parentification, a word I'd never heard before. She said, if you were treated like a third parent instead of a child, if your family only called when they needed something, that wasn't love. That was control. I watched it 3 times. My hands were shaking. And in the comments, someone had written, join Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers. It saved my life, I clicked. It was a private Facebook group with over 100,000 members. Every post felt like someone had stolen pages from my journal. Stories of being the responsible one, the invisible helper, the emotional sponge. Stories that mirrored mine, right down to the guilt, the manipulation, the weaponized silence. I sat there scrolling for hours, reading post after post from women who had walked away from their families and still woke up in cold sweats wondering if they'd done the right thing. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't broken. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't selfish. I was conditioned. Conditioned to believe that love meant sacrifice. That setting a boundary was betrayal. That saying no meant I was ungrateful. I started journaling. Every day. Not for anyone else, just for me. Wrote down the lies I was told. Wrote down the truth I was learning. Wrote down the things I wish I'd heard as a child. Cassie noticed the change before I did. You're lighter, she said. You don't flinch when your phone rings anymore. She was right. I was healing in slow, quiet ways. Ways that didn't need an audience. Because healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just logging into a Facebook group and whispering, me too. And suddenly, you're not alone anymore. It was my therapist who suggested it. Write a letter to your mom. Say everything you've never said. Don't hold back. You don't have to send it, just get it out. So I did. I lit a candle. Sat at my little kitchen table. Pulled out a notebook and wrote at the top, Dear Mom, and then I let it pour. I told her how I used to wait by the door after school, hoping she'd ask about my day instead of launching into Jenna's latest drama. How I cried in silence the first time she called me selfish because I skipped babysitting to study for an exam I failed anyway. I told her I wasn't the strong one. I was the quiet one. There's a difference, I wrote. You only saw me when I was useful. You only loved me when I was convenient. I don't hate you. But I don't miss you either. And I think that hurts worse than rage ever could. Then I wrote to Jenna. You were never the enemy. You were just the chosen one. But that doesn't mean I owe you my life. I didn't edit. Didn't cross anything out. Just wrote until my hand cramped and the ink bled from where tears had smudged the page. When I finished, I read it once. Not to relive it. Just to honor it. Then I folded it, walked out to the fire pit behind my apartment building, and lit it with a match. I watched the flames curl the edges, turn my pain into ash, and I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clean. That letter was never meant for them. It was for me, proof that I had finally said what needed to be said. Even if they never heard it. It's strange how quiet life becomes when you stop performing for people who never really saw you. 2 years have passed. No calls, no voicemails. The silence used to terrify me. Now it's peace, but I still see them. Not in person, never that, but through other people. Friends who mention how Jenna moved back in with our parents, how she dropped out of school, how she posts those vague, self-pitying quotes online about family betrayal and being left behind, how Mom still writes birthday posts for me every year. pretending everything is fine, like I'm the estranged one who just wandered off, as if they didn't push me out the door. As if I didn't walk because staying meant dying slowly. I've never responded. Not once, not to the tags, not to the messages I know they've sent from fake accounts, not to the distant relatives who try to reconnect on Facebook with suspicious timing. I see everything. I just don't engage. Instead, I've built something new. A small apartment I love. A job that doesn't drain me. A group of friends who show up for me, not because I fix their mess, but because I exist, and that's enough. I'm engaged now. He's gentle. He listens. He asks about my dreams instead of my duties. Sometimes he holds my face in his hands and says, "You don't owe anyone your peace," and I believe him. For the first time in my life, I actually believe someone when they say I deserve good things. I don't hate my family, but I don't mourn them either. I grieved the loss long before I walked away. Now I just watch from a safe distance. Like a ghost observing the house they used to haunt, and I let them spiral in the silence I left behind. If you've ever been the black sheep of your family, I want you to hear me now. You are not broken. You are not cruel. You are not selfish. You were just born into a family that mistook obedience for love. A family that only valued your silence, your sacrifices, your ability to keep spinning while they fell apart. I spent most of my life trying to be enough for people who only saw me when they needed something. They called it love. But love doesn't feel like obligation. Love doesn't make you invisible. Love doesn't ask you to bleed quietly. And when I finally said no, just once, they acted like I had burned the house down. But here's what they'll never say. The house was already on fire. I just stopped holding the hose. I didn't get revenge. I didn't scream. I didn't show up to confront anyone or demand closure. I just left. And sometimes that's the loudest thing you can do. Because when you walk away from people who drain you, manipulate you, rewrite your story to make themselves the victims, you're not being dramatic. You're being free. I don't know who needs to hear this, but you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You don't have to carry their shame, their weight, their chaos. You are allowed to be the villain in their story if it means being the hero in your own. So if you've ever been the black sheep, I hope you find the courage to walk. I hope you find a couch to crash on, a friend who listens, a page to write it all down, and I hope you build a life so peaceful they have no choice but to sit in the ruins of the one they tried to control. Because healing isn't revenge, but it's close enough.